How's it going, everyone? It's Javi from Weather Sponge 5000. Today is December 18th, 2021, and today we're going to focus on the major snowstorm that's currently impacting the Northeast that could bring up to a foot of snow in some areas, and we'll also focus on our next big cool down that's expected to bring temperatures well below average throughout the eastern half of the United States, and we'll also talk about our next major snowstorms along the west coast for the coming week. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current radar for the Northeast, and of course we're seeing that snowstorm move through the Northeast, interior Northeast at this time, and we're seeing some moderate snow bands begin to develop right around upstate New York at this time, right around the Adirondack Mountains. And as you can see, most of the snow is pretty much relegated just to the north of the Interstate 90 corridor, like I've been talking about for the past several videos, where it seems like that rain snow line will pretty much develop right around the Interstate 90 corridor between Buffalo and Boston, and that's exactly been the case, where we haven't seen really much snow go as far south as Boston, as most of the snow has been further northward, as this is primarily impacting areas in the extreme interior portions of the Northeast. So it isn't affecting necessarily a large population, but it's still affecting millions of people by impacting these areas further northward. So this is still something we need to pay close attention to. And you see that in Maine, you still have a long way to go, because this storm is moving from westerly to easterly direction, so there's still a lot more snow you guys have left right around Maine. And you see that the snow begins to get heavier towards the backside of this snow band, where we begin to see the snow rate steadily increase as you head further westward. So there's still a pretty long way to go, and if you were to continue to move forward with the forecast, you see that snow continues throughout the northern Northeast till right around 9:30, and it should go on beyond that, especially if you're closer to Maine towards the eastern portion of this storm. So there's still a long way to go, as you guys will experience very heavy snow over the next several hours in that area. If we were to take a look at the forecast from the GFS model, the radar forecast, if we were to move forward, you see that this should continue till Sunday morning, and then maybe end in Maine by Sunday afternoon. So this will be a long duration event for you guys, and you could see maybe up to a foot of snow associated with this snowstorm. But by the time it's around Sunday night, the snow pressure system should be well off the coast of the Northeast, and it shouldn't be bring much of any more impacts to the Northeast, which is certainly good news, because if it were an even longer duration event, then we could be talking about feet of snow rather than inches. But in this case, it does seem like it's gonna bring any more than maybe a foot of snow. There are going to be areas where you do receive a little bit over a foot, but in terms of receiving 20 inches, that seems unlikely unless you're in the extreme higher elevations of maybe the Appalachian mountain ranges. But that doesn't seem likely, even if you're in the higher elevations of the Northeast. But still, expect a lot of snow, because 6 to 12 inches of snow is still significant for you guys, and you need to pay close attention to that. Stay off the roads, especially through tonight and into Sunday morning for a lot of Northeast, because you could see snow bands move through your area that are moderate to maybe potentially heavy at times, and over 6 inches of snow is considered significant. So make sure to prepare for heavy snow in the Northeast for tonight and into tomorrow morning, as don't have plans in case it's an extreme emergency to drive out, because it could be dangerous and life-threatening depending on how much snow is on the road. So make sure to take precaution overnight for the interior Northeast. But beyond Sunday afternoon, this should primarily move out, so it shouldn't be much more of an imminent threat for the United States at that point. However, you might be asking what will happen after this snowstorm moves through the Northeast, and we're going to see a little bit of a cool down, because you see that as the snow pressure system continues to move eastward, we begin to see a small jet stream dip on the back side of it, and that should bring temperatures below average temporarily for the Northeast. I wouldn't say it's going to be the temperatures will be extremely below average for the eastern half of the United States, but you will definitely experience cooler than average conditions, and it will feel a lot cooler than it is, especially since that the warmer that we've been already had a very warm week for a lot of the Northeast, where in my area, northern New Jersey, we were experiencing temperatures in the 50s and 60s, which is well above average for the month of December. But for a lot of Northeast, the temperatures are expected to drop down to maybe around 10 degrees below average. Let's take a look at the temperature anomaly to give you guys a good idea of how far the temperatures will drop over the next couple of days. So you see that as of right now, the temperatures for most of the United States are warmer than average, especially, I mean, for the eastern half at least, especially if you're maybe just south of Pennsylvania. We're seeing temperature anomalies where you're seeing temperatures 20 degrees above average in many places in the southeast, which is well above average, and maybe in some areas it's considered record breaking with a temperature anomaly that high. But if we were to continue to move forward, you see that we begin to see that pronounced jet stream dip, and in some areas in the Northeast, you could experience temperatures potentially 20 degrees below average, especially in the higher elevations. But for the most part, you're hovering around maybe 5 to 10 degrees below average throughout the Northeast once this low pressure system moves through, and this should begin as early as Monday for a lot of you guys, since the low pressure system will bring a strong northwesterly flow to bring those temperatures below average temporarily for a lot of the United States. This includes portions of the southeast as well, where temperatures will fall back to earth, and it'll feel a lot colder because, like I said, you guys just experienced temperatures over 20 degrees below above average. So to go from 20 degrees above average to maybe 10 degrees below average, that's a 30-degree difference right there. And for a lot of people, that might not be something you'll get used to, just a 30-degree change that quickly. So it'll feel a lot colder than what you'd expect. Because of how warm it's been feeling throughout the eastern half of the United States. So make sure to prepare for cooler than average temperatures throughout the eastern half of the United States. But we do see that it might warm up a little bit as a result of a low pressure system moving through, being somewhat of a strong southwesterly flow. But it should fluctuate a lot this week, and you see that. But what's interesting is that right around the 5-day mark, we're going to see a big warm up right around the central portion of the country. Again, we have to see if this holds up because we're still 5 days out, but more likely than not, temperatures will be well above average throughout the southern United States. So that's something to keep in mind over the next couple weeks. That after this low pressure system moves out, we're going to see temperatures cool down for maybe around 2 to 3 days before they fall maybe back to earth. I'd say right around the Tuesday to Wednesday time frame for a lot of the eastern half of the United States, and we could see our next big warm up throughout the central portion of the country. But the eastern half still remains around average when it comes to temperature, to potentially below average. So that's definitely something you guys want to keep in mind throughout the eastern half of the United States. Over the next week, that temperatures are expected to cool down, and the central United States might prepare for a pretty big warm up by next week, where we could see temperatures, believe it or not, 40 degrees above average. But we need to wait and see if that holds up over the next several weeks. But let's take a look now at the West Coast to see what's going to happen. So for the next week, when it comes to weather, it should primarily be, I'd say, quiet. Outside of this snowstorm that's currently impacting the Northeast, it should be quiet when it comes to at least winter weather. We're gonna see, but the only area that's going to see snow is the West Coast, where in the higher elevations you could receive, again, feet of snow, especially towards California, because we're going to see multiple troughs through because we have this first trough bringing rain to the Pacific Northwest right now and snow in the higher elevations of the Pacific Northwest. And then we're going to see another trough move through right around the 3-day mark on Tuesday. And we're just gonna see sort of an atmospheric river form, where we're gonna see just a plume of moisture move into California, and that should bring extremely heavy snowfall to the extreme higher elevations of California, to where you're gonna experience feet of snow again, and that's something you want to keep in mind, as we're just gonna see a plume of moisture, just a ton of moisture over the next week throughout California, especially the central to northern portions of California. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind throughout California, that you could receive another instance where you could receive feet of snow. If we were to take a look at the forecasted snowfall over the next week throughout the west coast, you're going to see that by the 5 day or right around the 6 day mark, you could receive up to 95 inches of snow, which, believe it or not, is almost equivalent to 8 feet of snow on top of the feet of snow you already experienced. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. We're going to see more snow, so it'll be good for skiing for a lot of you guys right around the Pacific Northwest and portions of California, but it might not be so good on the roadways, especially if you're in the higher elevations. So make sure to pay close attention to that if you're living right around the higher elevations along the west coast, because you could experience heavy snowfall, especially coastal California and the Pacific Northwest, as a result of this major snowstorm. So make sure to keep that in mind throughout the west coast, that you're going to experience just major snowfall. And in terms of the rainfall, that could be another issue the west coast will have to contend with. If we were to take a look at the accumulated rainfall forecast over the next, let's say, 6 days, you see that we're expecting maybe right around the Bay Area 3 inches within the next 6 days, and a little bit more just north of that. And we're even seeing the heavier rainfall go right around the Los Angeles area, and Seattle and Portland, Oregon is getting involved with right around 3 to 5 inches of rain. So you could see flooding out of this atmospheric river that's going to form and bring just a ton of moisture along the coast. So make sure to pay close attention to that if you're along the west coast. Another thing we're going to need to pay attention to is the Arctic oscillation, because you see that now we're dipping down into the negative Arctic oscillation phase, which means that we're more likely than not going to experience cooler than average conditions in the United States, especially in the eastern half of the United States more specifically. And there could maybe be a higher chance of snowstorms if this negative Arctic oscillation were to last for a long period of time. We have to wait and see. Currently, the forecast is that we'll continue to dip into the negative phase until maybe approaching January, where we could rebound back closer to a positive, which would make it less likely for a major snowstorm and less likely for cooler than average temperatures. But we need to wait and see. But since we're entering a negative Arctic oscillation phase, just know that the eastern half of the United States is more likely than not going to experience cooler than average conditions for the next week. So that's definitely something we're going to definitely take a look at over the next couple of weeks. And to show you guys what happens during negative Arctic oscillation, what pretty much happens is that this Greenland low pressure system and this Bermuda high are very weak during this time. So the westerly winds are a lot weaker, which means that the cold air is less likely to be trapped further northward, and it's more likely to dip further southward and bring cooler than average conditions throughout the United States and snowier than average conditions. While for a positive phase, the opposite happens, where the westerly winds are a little stronger. So that's definitely something we need to keep in mind over next week. A major cool down along the eastern half of the United States, potentially a foot of snow for tonight for the interior Northeast, and major snowstorms upcoming for the west coast, and potentially major rainfall as well that could induce flooding along the west coast. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.